But the greatest promise that I think that is in Scripture is not so much a promise of healing or a promise of material benefit or anything like that. What I think is really the greatest promise and the most repeated promise in all of Scripture is this, and goes right back to verse 9 of today, and we see that of Exodus 25, and it's this. It says, "Let them build me a sanctuary that I may dwell among them." And the greatest promise that we have from God is His presence. His presence. And there's a whole list of situations in which we read of God's presence in our life. You know, Psalm 91 says that I will be with him, talking about the soldier that puts his hope in God, says, I will be with him in distress. In other words, you're going to experience distress. You're going to have trouble. Don't let that tarry you. Don't let that cause you to fall back. He will be with you in distress. But anyways, I digress, and that's another sermon in and of itself. Someone said that, no, we should have an ecclesiocentric understanding. An ecclesiocentric. In other words, that what we see in the Tanakh is a typology for what we see lived out in the life of Israel, which has implications for the ecclesia, the church, or the assembly. And it's interesting because you see Rav Shaul, as we just heard about from 2 Corinthians, doing just that. He really takes today's Torah portion and contextualizes it in the life of the early church or of the early Kahila, or the assembly. You know, it's something that God commanded that the tabernacle, the Mishkan, be built. It's a commandment. It has to be done. But everything that was brought for the purpose of building it was not driven on commandment. It says that each person's heart stirred them. As each person's heart stirred them, that everything was brought in. And we really don't read of it in the way that we think of it today in the Tanakh, in the Hebrew Bible either as well, because what we read of tithing in the Tanakh, in the Hebrew Bible, is the idea of bringing a tenth of your property or of your crop value into the Mishkan. So in a sense, you really, on a literal sense, can't tithe today. But again, if we understand that in the Torah there are axioms or principles, and we do see an example, an axiom, a principle of righteous people bringing a tenth of what they have to God. But the point being here is that it doesn't say anything about what or amount should be brought for the purpose of the temple being built. It says, as each person's heart stirred them, they brought. And you need to know something, whether or not you ever give a dime at Beth Yeshua congregation or not, it will not change God's love for you one single bit. But if the work of the kingdom is going to get done, and of course God commanded that things be done, and if that's going to be done, then each person's heart has to stir them according to the Spirit to bring in to the purpose. Yeshua said, give and it shall be given, pressed down, shaken together, overflowing. And that's the principle. Give from the top of your heart is what I would say.